All right, everyone. Welcome to the Stop the Sabotage webinar. I really appreciate all of you taking the time to join us. I know there's all kinds of other things you could be doing, such as children, uh, eating, building your business, all kinds of other stuff. And I really appreciate you for that. And I want to acknowledge you for that because a lot of people find all kinds of reasons not to attend trainings like this. And there's a never ending supply of reasons not to attend anything, not just webinars like this, but not to go to your unit meetings, not to attend seminar, career conference, leadership, what have you. And so just the fact that you are not one of the people that are looking for reasons not to do something, and instead you're one of the people searching for reasons to build your business, to work on yourself, etc., means to me that you are the cream of the cream of the cream of the crop. And I acknowledge you for that. And I want you to acknowledge and appreciate yourself for that as well. My name is Sean Smith. That is a picture of me. It's actually a caricature of me on the right-hand side there. And today in this webinar, we're going to be talking about stop the sabotage. Sabotage is something that almost everybody deals with in all walks of life. Today, we're going to be talking about it specifically as it relates to your Mary Kay business. None of these concepts are Mary Kay specific, but we're going to talk about the application of them in your Mary Kay business simply because that's who you all are, and that's one of the vehicles you've chosen to better your life. And that's why all of these examples will be Mary Kay examples. None of them are intended to shine any kind of negative light on Mary Kay, the company, or anybody in Mary Kay, or any training that you've ever gotten in Mary Kay. We're only using applications in the form of examples in your Mary Kay business. So we're going to talk about how to identify, clarify, and get rid of the internal fears that are actually creating the sabotaging patterns. They're all going to be related to the internal conflicts that you have, specifically limiting beliefs. We're going to dive deep into limiting beliefs. And this training is going to be a little bit deeper than maybe some of you've heard in the past from me or in other areas of training, whether it's in Mary Kay or outside of Mary Kay. We're not just going to be talking about behaviors, but we're going to go down deeper into the seeds that eventually grow into the sabotage. And I want to help you get rid of the actual conflicts so that you're not just wrestling with the surface level challenges. So my purpose today is to spend the next hour or so with you. I want to teach you everything that I can about what I've learned to be true about success and achievement, specifically in my experience in more than a decade working with thousands and thousands of Mary Kay directors, nationals, and consultants. What we're going to talk about and dive into specifically is why people actually sabotage themselves, how to identify the problems instead of just the symptoms, how to erase the cause of your perfectionism, procrastination, internal fears. We're going to talk about the fear of rejection, the fear of procrastination, or the fear of failure, as well as the fear of success, and a couple specific applications of the fear of success, which I think are going to be intriguing to you, specifically how many of you are afraid of climbing towards success now, and also many of you are afraid of hearing a yes in your Mary Kay business. So I want to get jumping into the actual, or I want to get going into the actual problems that you have. But let me set some expectations for this webinar. As I said, we're going to be going around an hour, maybe a little bit more. If you have questions, you can go ahead and type them in to your question, and or I think it's called chat section on your console on your end. But just know there are a lot of people on the webinar. I'm not going to be checking the questions as I go. And if I do see questions coming in, I may stop and address them as I see them. But for the most part, I'm going to let them go until later in the webinar. I ask and suggest that you don't take down notes of information, meaning what I have on my slides. You can capture these slides later in the recording. What I want you to do is take notes of your inspiration. What are the things that you are inspired to do based on the stuff that I say? So you can always find the information on my slides later, but you can't capture the inspiration that you have based on my slides unless you take them down now. I want you to stick around to the end of the presentation. I'll let you know how to go deeper and how to get access to those slides. And if you are the social media type, please share your ahas on our fan page at facebook.com/pinkcaddycoach. You can tag me so that I or my team can respond to you and celebrate your success and your ahas, etc. Let's start by seeing if you're even in the right place. You are in the right place if you have internal challenges, meaning doubts, fears, limiting beliefs, any of that negative head talk that is affecting your life and your business. And if you have those things, well, that just means that you are human and your brain is functioning properly. So I don't want you to get concerned about that. I want you to get excited about that. But you don't want those issues to get in the way of your success any longer. Just because you have them doesn't mean that you need to be a victim of them. And you've also got to be serious about your success. You are serious enough to be on this training, obviously, but you've got to be willing to take action towards your dreams. I don't want you to just be the kind of person that collects information intellectually and thinks that that intellectual knowledge is going to take you anywhere. Nobody's ever thought their way to their goals and dreams or achieving anything significant. You've got to take action. And so the main question is, are you interested in your success or are you committed to your success? Now, you're in the wrong place if you're basically the opposite of what we just said. If you're looking for the magic bullet, I don't have that. I've never found one of those. I don't teach any of that stuff because I don't believe in it. If you're looking for a shortcut to success, go somewhere else. I don't think there is a shortcut to success. I will never teach that. If you're not willing to work hard, if you're not willing to challenge yourself, if you're not willing to really go for your dreams, I mean, we're talking about your life. If you're not willing to actually dive in, then I just don't think that you're going to take any or you're going to achieve any amount of significant progress, because life requires effort and hard work. Now, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to suffer, right? We're going to talk about how to remove some of the emotional suffering, but we're also talking about building a dream here. So if you don't understand that dreams require effort and sustained work, then I don't think I can help you. And you're also in the wrong place if you're looking for anybody to sugarcoat the issues. If you've been in my community, listened to any of my webinars, read any of my emails, especially some of the more recent ones, I don't sugarcoat stuff. I just, I respect your time a lot more than that. So as I said earlier, none of this is meant to shed any negative light on Mary Kay. I absolutely love this company. Some of the things that I love about Mary Kay are, number one, the products make people feel fantastic. I every day use some of the Mary Kay products, and I've had some fantastic transformations myself. I also love the company's mission to enrich women's lives. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of women have had their lives fundamentally changed. I suspect all of you have, otherwise you wouldn't be on this webinar. You wouldn't still be in the company, and you certainly wouldn't be chasing any new thoughts like a training like this in order to continue to grow if you hadn't had your life enriched on some level. And deeper than that, what I love is the personal development opportunity that it has in store for you. Mary Kay has this special way of bringing you face to face with all of your challenges, all of your doubts, all of your fears, all of your questions about whether you can do this. And that's simply an opportunity for you to grow. And I actually love that more than anything else about this company is the personal development invitation you have. And a lot of people just won't take that invitation. They're going to continue to try to avoid all the things that are required in order to help them grow as a person. And I highly, highly suggest that you don't avoid those invitations, that you run toward them actually. And what I love about you specifically, not just the company, but you specifically, is that you're willing to invest time and energy and money, which is also time and energy, in yourself, because you understand that you are your most valuable asset in your business. And you must be committed to taking action. Obviously, I already talked about that. You've got to be ready for something bigger in your life and in your business. And that can only come from inside of you. So here's the truth. You're not in the Mary Kay business. You're not in the skincare business. You're not in the cosmetics business. You're not in the beauty business. You're not in the image business. You're not in any of those things. You're in the people business. And more than that, you are your business. That's why you are your most valuable asset. That's why the energy, the time, and the money that you invest in yourself is the wisest investment, because at the core of your success will be you, will be your internal makeup, not your skill set, not how many scripts you can memorize. It's you. It's your ability and willingness to get back up when you fall down. It's your courage. It's your determination. It's your discipline. It's all of those things that are internal to you. That's what will determine your success. And I know for the most part, I'm preaching to the choir, but we have to lay that foundation for everything that we are about to get into. So here's the reality about what's possible when we take a look at sabotage. It's absolutely possible to clear away your biggest internal blocks, not just cope with them. I'm not in the coping business. I don't think you're in the coping business. I don't know of anybody who, when they were little, said, you know what, I just want to cope with my biggest challenges and I want to cope with my fears when I become an adult. Nobody wants to do that. We all want to live a life of freedom, a life of success, the highest levels. And you can't do that if you're just carrying around all of this baggage, coping with the challenges that you have. Now, this change can absolutely be made. Some people don't believe it can happen in the first place, or if they do believe it can happen, they think it's going to take years and years and years. But the reality is it can happen quickly as long as you have the right mindset. And once you get rid of these internal behaviors and the actual challenges around your sabotage, then the success will follow in your business. But you must take action, and this has to be an inside out process if it's going to be long term and if it's going to be sustainable. You can make some of the outside in changes, or just some of the outside changes where you focus on some of the things that are more surface level, and you look at some of your skill sets and you memorize some of the scripts. All that stuff is okay. It can make small shifts, but it can never make big shifts, and it can never really generate long-term success because it can't change the foundation, right? But when you shift your foundation and you clear some of these internal challenges, it's amazing what can happen. And I just want to share some of those with you before we get into the actual meat here. Antonella is a director from New York, and she said once she got rid of her perfectionism, her income tripled immediately. So ask yourself if you would be okay with your income tripling immediately, if you can budget that. And we also have Koti from Texas. She did some of this internal work as well, and just making some of the foundational shifts. She brought in over 80 team members in 1 month and over $28,000 in production in a single month. And what she says, though, is that what she's more excited about and happy with is the shifts that she had in her family, the relationship with her husband, the relationship with her children, and that she's found balance in her life. And I love this last part. Oh, yeah, by the way, I got into my Cadillac. When you make these internal shifts, the tangible success you can create in your life, and specifically in Mary Kay, is like an, oh, by the way, I also generated all this money. I also got into the Cadillac. I also became a director. And when your tangible results are a byproduct of the intangible internal shifts, that's when life becomes amazing. That's when the lights get brighter, so to speak. That's when the colors become more vibrant. That's when it becomes a lot more easier and much more fulfilling. But here's the reality. Most consultants, most directors don't have the business that they signed up for. And I'm not trying to burst any bubbles, but that's the reality. And most of them are chasing the wrong problems at the surface. They're constantly searching for some of the skill set stuff, the recruiting scripts, the hostess programs, the time management systems, the tracking forms, how to handle objections, the secrets of motivating other people, the rules of leadership, etc. Those are all surface level stuff. And what happens when you focus on all the surface level stuff, it leads to more challenges. It leads to frustration. It actually leads to more overwhelm. It leads to more doubt, more anxiety. It leads to more stress. It leads to lower self-esteem. It increases financial worries, strained relationships, disappointment. It actually increases the problems. And obviously, it doesn't have to be that way. It's not Mary Kay Ash's vision for what this company is. As I said earlier, it's not a Mary Kay problem. This is a universal human behavior problem. But the reality is, this is what most people are experiencing. And when we take a look at sabotage, some of the more common forms are procrastination, perfectionism, fear of failure, overwhelm, fear of rejection, time management challenges, creative avoidance is what we call it, the fear of success, which is a misunderstood behavior pattern. We're going to dive into that a little bit later. But this is what most people are focusing on, and these are not actually the problems, right? Those are more symptoms of the problem instead of the actual problem. But once we clear away the problems, let's look at the benefits of clearing those away. Let's look at what you actually want, right? What I know to be true after being in this company for over 10 years is that most of you just want to feel like you're not fighting against the parking brake, right? You want to just let go of any of the internal things that are stopping you. You want to be motivated to work your business on a daily basis or however much you want to do it. You want to get rid of those fears of rejection and failure and talking to people and warm chatting and all of that stuff. You want more confidence. You want more clarity, specifically on what to do in Mary Kay and what to say when you're talking to people. The bottom line is you want it to be fun and you want it to be simple. And obviously, you're in business as well, so you want it to be profitable. You want to make really good money without all of the struggle, without all of the inconsistency, without all of the stress. You want it to be fun. You want it to be more streamlined, and you want it to be simple. So the first thing you've got to understand is, yes, you can do this. And what I want you to do is suspend any disbelief that you have about yourself, about the business, about your past experiences. All of those things need to be put to rest if you're going to think about expansiveness, right? You've got to, at least for a moment, you've got to consider that you can be limitless. You can be limitless in life. You can be limitless personally in any area, and you can be limitless specifically in Mary Kay, but not if you're swimming upstream. If you take a look at that little blue guy down there, that blue fish is going the wrong way. Now, while on one level, I am all about going a different way than most people, what I'm talking about here is swimming against the current internally, right? Most people are traveling upstream against their habits, against their identities, against their beliefs, against their drivers, against their values. And that's what makes it all so difficult. It feels like you're going uphill because you're going against the current. So you basically have two fundamental choices. Do you want to keep swimming against the current, or do you want to change the current? And hopefully you can feel, I just felt it in my body as I said that, when you change the current, or when you even think about changing the current, everything becomes so much easier. That's the work that most people don't do, and that's what's actually possible. So before I go any further, I want to give you a 60 to 100-second version, if I can, about who I am. I'm there in the bottom right-hand corner. That's my family, my wife, Sybil, my daughter, McKenna, and my son, Exley. I am a father and a husband first. I've become a speaker and a coach since then. I have this amazing family that I just introduced you to. They are my why. They are my fuel. And what got me into personal development in the first place, way back when I was 13 years old, I was actually almost killed in a hit and run accident by my next door neighbor. And it was at a point where I was high on life. I didn't think anything could go wrong. I was looking at life through an immortal perspective, right? I didn't know that I mean, I knew consciously at some point that I was going to die, but I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking like I was invincible. And then this incident happened. And if you take a look at the details of this accident, there's no reason I should have survived. But for whatever reason, I wasn't done, and God allowed me to come off of death's doorstep. And it completely changed the way I viewed everything. And if any of you have had a near death experience, I believe that you can relate to what I'm saying. So I realized in that moment that we are not promised our next breath. And I basically had a conversation with myself, and I made a promise that if I only have one shot and I don't know when my last breath is going to be, then I was going to do everything that I possibly could to live a life of excellence, to not settle for mediocrity. But even though I made that promise to myself for the next almost 20 years, I still struggled. So I learned that willpower alone is not enough until in 2005, I had a monster breakthrough at a personal development seminar with a life coach where I understood for the first time why I was holding myself back. And it was at that time that I learned about these limiting beliefs and fears and values and all the things that I'm going to continue diving into with you on this webinar. And I just decided that I needed to share this information because it completely shifted my energy. I felt lighter. My wife said, "What happened to you?" My friends were going, "Hey man, what's going on? You're smiling too much," and completely shifted my life. And I know we throw around this phrase of breakthrough or life-changing scenario. We throw those kinds of phrases and words around a lot, but that really truly did change my life. And then in 2006, I just sort of accidentally fell into the pink bubble of Mary Kay. I never intended to be a speaker, a coach, or trainer in the Mary Kay world. But once I experienced the culture, once I went to a seminar and I felt the vibe, I felt the hunger in the room, I was hooked. And so for the last decade plus, I've been coaching and training in the Mary Kay world. So I've gotten to know a lot about the not just the language, but the thoughts and the desires and what really holds consultants and directors back. But deeper than you just building a business, you all have a purpose on this planet. And I know you understand that on a certain level. I also know that most of us don't really touch our deepest desire to share what we've learned or our deepest mission on this planet. Most of us don't ever get fully connected with that. And I wasn't fully connected with that until a few short years ago when I had the experience of my father calling me and telling me that he had pancreatic cancer. And many of you know the story. He was diagnosed with stage 4 of pancreatic cancer. And at that point, most people it's just a matter of time. And that was the case for my dad. I ended up bringing him home to my house, and he lived his final 80 days in our living room on a hospital bed. And I had the opportunity to have a final conversation with him just before he died, just when I realized he had lost his will to live, and now he wanted to basically speed up the process, and he wanted to just pass away without any pain. I got this sense of incompletion. And so I got permission from the nurses to take his pain patches off because I just wanted, one more conversation with that man. And I wanted to tell him what he meant to me. And I wanted to let him know the kind of legacy that he was going to leave with me, with my friends, with my childhood teammates. And so I had this beautiful conversation where I was holding his hand and I just talked with him for about 45 minutes to an hour. And finally, when I knew it was almost over, this conversation, I asked this question: "Dad, how can I live your legacy when you're gone?" And he shook his head as though I'd asked a silly question. And with no hesitation, he said, "Shawnee, just be who you can be, do what you can do, and live a good life." And those words still bring goosebumps to me every time I say them, and I can feel his presence in my body. And I can remember how those words really hit me. And I knew that I had just been given this gift. And once I felt these words land in my soul, I also knew that I had an obligation to share this work, to share this feeling right here, to share these words with people. And when you get connected to your deeper purpose, you'll feel a sense of obligation. You'll feel a sense that you cannot sit on your hands. You cannot let the opportunity go by. You have to talk to more people. And most people just never really get that sense. And if they do touch their purpose, all of these other surface level fears and all these sabotaging patterns get in the way. And so what we're talking about here, what I'm getting at, is a way for you to clear the space so that you can live your purpose and you can share whatever your message is with the people that you come in contact with, whatever that is for you. And I'm not suggesting that this is yours. I'm saying this is mine, but you have something that you've really got to give to people that come into contact with you. And my invitation is that you connect with that at such a deep level that you couldn't not share it, because that's the level of obligation that you have. And the reason I'm here on this planet, and specifically why I'm here with you today, is because I know that you have success inside of you. I know that you're committed to it. I know that you have the ability and the willingness and the desire and the deep obligation now to help a lot of people on this journey. And my purpose is to hold a space big enough for you to take everything you have and bet it on yourself, so that you let go of the obstacles that are in your way, because the reality is that most people are doing nothing but bet against themselves every single day. Most people are focusing on all the reasons they can't succeed, all the reasons they can't win, all the reasons they shouldn't get on the phone and talk to people, all the reasons that success is not meant for them, all the reasons that they can't be a director, all the reasons they can't be a national. And all of that is BS. And you've got to, at some point in time, get to the point where you're willing to fight for yourself and not against yourself. Most people never cross that line. And until you cross that line and you're willing to bet everything you have on yourself, then you will constantly be part of the problem. And that problem is not your fault. I know at no point did you say, I'm going to intentionally be part of the problem. But you've got to understand that you are not only the biggest problem, but because of that, you are the only solution and the biggest solution. And I'm here to invite you to make that shift. That's the shift I made in 2005. That's what caused me to change everything in my life. That's what caused me to start making more money. That's what caused me to start loving myself. That's what caused me to start fighting for myself and not against myself. That's what changed everything. So if you're willing to play a bigger game, you've got to cross that line. And not until you cross that line will you even be able to fundamentally be in your own corner. That's what I'm here to do, because I know that you're meant to play full out no matter what happens to you. You have a story that needs to be told. You have a song that needs to be sung. You've chosen Mary Kay to be a vehicle for that. But nobody that I've ever met has a Mary Kay problem. You have internal problems that Mary Kay exposes. That's it. Now, if you're willing to address those challenges, then I want to invite you to bet big on yourself. That's why I'm here. Now, specifically, let's get into the language of sabotage and how it shows up in your life, in your Mary Kay business. You know, I talked about these behaviors, these patterns of sabotage: procrastination, perfectionism, fear of rejection, fear of failure, creative avoidance, time management, all of that stuff, fear of success. But those are just the surface level problems. Those are like the leaves on the tree. And you can spend as much time as you want pruning this tree and cutting these leaves, but that's not where the problems originated. These leaves didn't just show up on their own. These leaves were created because of all the other things on the tree, because of the trunk, because of the branches, because of the roots. So specifically, all of these behaviors of sabotage, the patterns, were created because of your drivers. They were created because of your identities. And I'm going to explain all of this in a moment. They were created because of your values under the surface. And specifically, when we dig down to the deepest aspect of the roots, they were created because of your beliefs. So the question for you is, do you want to continue clipping the leaves of the tree, or do you want to uproot the problem? And when you uproot the problem, the whole tree falls. When you uproot the problem, all of these patterns, not only do they have the ability to just fall away on their own, but they can all tumble together because the behaviors that you created as solutions basically to the problems aren't necessary anymore. So let me dive deeper into that. Let me give you sort of a linear perspective of the way all of these things work. Between the ages of 0 and 6, we go through this period called the imprint period. And that's when we have just a blank canvas, basically, right? We have what we call blind belief. We don't have a frame of reference to compare any of our experiences against. So everything that we experience, we believe that's the way it's supposed to be. And we start all kinds of stories about who we are, about what success is, about people, about the world, about money, about all of these things. We start all of these stories in this imprint period. That's why they say, many of you might have heard this, that between the ages of 0 and 6, most of our learning, most of our beliefs have actually been cemented. And from that point forward, almost everything that we experience in life just fits into folders that have already been created. They fit into stories that have already been created. So once these stories have started, what those form are what I call drivers. These are definitions of what pain and pleasure are, what right and wrong is, what good and bad is, what success and failure is. We start to identify what's important to us. And these drivers, the reason I call them these drivers is because they drive all of our decisions at an unconscious level primarily. They determine all of the choices that we make. Now, we're generally not conscious that these drivers are basically, at the wheel, so to speak, of the car that we're driving in. But that's what's happening, is all of our choices are being driven by these definitions and by what's important to us or what we value in our life. Now, as all of these things are being played out and all of these things are starting to interact with each other, the stories as well as the drivers, as well as our values and all these definitions, they start to form identities. We start to decide who we are in different situations. We go to school and we decide whether we are the class clown, or we are the wallflower, or we're the person that follows all the rules. We decide those things. We decide who we are on the sports field if we get into sports. We decide who we are inside of our families. We decide who we are in all of these different situations. And it's almost like creating a bunch of different personalities. That's how these identities work. Because some of you, or all of you really, have a completely different identity in one situation as you do in a different situation. And it might be sort of perplexing, but if you understand how these things are formed and how they work off of each other, then hopefully it starts to make sense as to why you will show up in one scenario completely different than you show up in another scenario. And what happens is these identities start to protect us. They start to protect our heart, they start to protect our emotions, and they start to become solidified, so much so that they literally start to function as though they are different, completely different personalities that we have in our lives. And all of these different personalities start to form behaviors. So it determines how we respond in certain situations, how we react in other situations. And with repetition, these behaviors start to form habits, not only habits, but unconscious habits. So we start to create all these identities at an unconscious level without our awareness generally. And these behaviors, all the things that I've been talking about in the tree of sabotage, we think are the solutions. Meaning, if we just focus on our fear of rejection, that's how to solve our problems. We think that if we focus on our discipline, that's how to solve our problems. We think that if we solve our time management issues, that's how to solve our problems. So we think that we've got to look at the behaviors in order to solve the problems. But what you have to understand is that these behaviors are the leaves of the tree, but they've just been formed through all of these roots and all of the trunks and all of the branches, right? So by the time that they show up as the behaviors, those are not actually the problems. Those are just symptoms of the problem. So you have to understand how all of these build on each other in order for you to understand how to fix it. So here's how to fix it. Or actually, let me tell you how to not fix it. You're not going to fix it by focusing on your behaviors. You can take seminars and read books on how to stop procrastinating and how to stop being a perfectionist all day long. That's not going to change the actual challenge. You can, or the problem. You can focus on your identities, but that's not going to attack the actual cause of the problem. You can look at your drivers, what your values are. You're getting closer, but that's still not the actual problem. If you want to change what is at the core of all of the problems, you've got to go after your beliefs, because these are the seeds. It's like if you look in your garden and you've got weeds in your garden, you can keep clipping the weeds all you want, but if you don't uproot the weeds, they're just going to grow back. So your choice is, do you want to keep playing at the surface, or do you want to uproot the actual problem, the actual seeds, right? So at a fundamental level, that's what we're dealing with here. That's what I mean by going inside out. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to give you some of the specific challenges that many of you have in your business around fear, rejection, failure, etc. And hopefully you can hone in on what the actual solution needs to be, right? So let's first talk about fear. In general, you've got to understand that almost all fears are mislabeled. We tell ourselves that we're afraid of an activity, but you're not afraid of the activity. You're not afraid of warm chatting. You're not afraid of sales. You're not afraid of making phone calls. You're not afraid of speaking to people in your business. You're not actually afraid of the activity. What you're afraid of is the negative emotional outcome of the activity, meaning if you call somebody on the phone and they don't answer, you're afraid of the way you feel after you hang up the phone, and specifically what you say to yourself that creates all of these negative emotional outcomes, right? So we've got two things. We've got the activity or we've got the outcome. So you have two choices. You can live the rest of your life trying to avoid the activity, which is called coping. In other words, if you think you're afraid of talking to people, then you can live the rest of your life trying to avoid talking to people, which is a completely wrong choice when you're in the people business, right? Or you can remove the risk. You can attack the negative emotional outcome, and you can actually clear away the fear. So that's what I mean by coping versus clearing. Do you want to try to avoid the triggers of the fear, or do you want to remove the ingredient that's creating the fear? Now, I say don't do the top one, because I don't think you're here to cope. I think you're here to live with freedom and not restriction. But most people choose that. Even if they don't do it intentionally, most people are just trying to live with the coping mechanisms of their fears, right? So let's even dive deeper and let's specifically dissect the fear of failure and or rejection. They basically work similarly, right? There's an event that happens, like somebody tells you no, and it feels like somebody just screamed at you, like this lady just did to this poor guy. And we have all these emotional reactions once somebody makes a human sound. I mean, if you think about it, people are afraid of a sound. Like most people will go to their grave having not achieved their potential, because primarily they're afraid of hearing a human sound. And that sound is no. Most people are so afraid of rejection that they don't try and go after their goals. And if you think about it, that's incredibly sad, especially when we are in charge of what that sound means. That sound no means absolutely nothing until we make it mean everything, right? So let's look at failure and rejection. Regardless of what somebody says, we make a judgment, right? There's no inherent meaning around what somebody says. If they say no, we're the ones that decide that it's a rejection or that it was a failure because we didn't get a name or a number, they didn't join the business. That's our judgment. Now, once we make that judgment, it triggers our beliefs. In other words, it triggers the internal perpetual stories that we have around not being good enough or not being able to win, or people don't like me, or anything that feels like some sort of inadequacy story, right? I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed, whatever. That's the story that actually has emotions attached to it. And the emotions are negative. They are embarrassment, sadness, hurt, depression, hopelessness, feeling helpless, dejected. All around negativity is what we feel. And because we're in that state of mind, we determine, or not determine, but we create these behaviors out of that state of mind, right? So we'll retreat, we'll avoid, we will resist whatever the activities are. And it's those behaviors that we call sabotage, right? It's that resistance that ultimately forms sabotage. But I want you to understand that the sabotage is a result of the emotions, which are a result of the beliefs, which are a result of the judgment. So you're not afraid of people telling you no. You're not afraid of rejecting or getting rejected by people. You're afraid of what you're going to feel afterwards. And ultimately, you are afraid of how you are going to make yourself feel. So the good news around that is you can change this whole process here. You can change it by shifting the judgments that you have, but that can only work if you work on your beliefs. You don't control people saying no to you. In fact, in Mary Kay, most people are going to say no to you. You can only control your reaction. You can only control your judgment to that process, right? So what I want you to take a look at now is these emotions, the embarrassment, the sadness, the hurt, the hopelessness, etc. Because it's these emotions that really create our behavior patterns, right? And just like this little cat who's afraid of whatever this little guy is afraid of, when you have the fear of some potential negative outcome, you're going to want to retreat. You're going to want to protect yourself. You're going to want to run and hide, right? And whenever you're in that place of not wanting to experience something, yet you know you've got to take action, you're going to be like this dude here that just got a collar put on. You're going to be like, nope, I'm not doing that. And you're going to want to dig your claws into the carpet no matter how hard somebody's pulling you, or no matter how hard you're trying to push yourself or you're trying to pull yourself. You're going to be like, nope, there's no way I'm going to make phone calls. And then it leads to the stories of, I shouldn't call people right now because they're at dinner. I shouldn't call people now because I don't want to sound pushy, or now's not a good time because it's in the middle of the day, blah, blah, blah. That's all a function of you being afraid of the emotions, right? So if we can clear, now that's called procrastination. If we can clear those emotions, now we can start to unwind this process of procrastination, but not until we clear the emotions. And the emotions, what I want you to really understand, the emotions are from your beliefs. Okay? So I want you to when we dissect these fears, I want you to identify what's the actual ingredient that's causing the problem, and what happens if you change the ingredient. And so I want you to hear the story of Judy, who's a director in Illinois. She said that she started to focus on only what she can control. She let go of the things that she couldn't control, such as other people saying no, other people lying to her, other people not showing up in her business. And basically, she started to identify the actual problems, right? And once she focused on what she could control, her results went through the roof. She tripled almost her production. She went from 17 to 73 team members, and she realized that she couldn't solve a problem with the same mind that actually created the problem. So when you shift your energy around the emotions that you're creating and you start to only focus on what you can control, you can have tremendous results in your business. But again, it's got to be an inside out shift, right? So let's now look at perfectionism, which operates similarly, but there are some specific and distinct differences that I want to highlight for you. Perfectionism is really an unhealthy connection between who you are and what you do, or your self-worth and your performance. See, we are programmed in society that when we perform better, we should feel better about ourselves. And the flip side is also true then. When we're not performing well, we should not feel good about ourselves. So that's why we have this unhealthy connection between who we are and what we accomplish. That's the difference between self-esteem and self-confidence. Now, this is a horrible problem in society that most people have. And the actual problem is not perfectionism. It's not that you have this extra gene in your chromosomes or you inherited this behavior pattern from your parents or from anybody else. That's not the problem. The problem is that you've been programmed to have a conditional self-acceptance. What that means is you only accept yourself sometimes. When you're doing well, you accept yourself. When you're not doing well, you don't accept yourself. And because of that, you have to pretend that you're perfect. Because if you can put off this air of perfection, then you can basically fool people or fool yourself that you can feel good about who you are because of what you've accomplished. And it's such a debilitating connection that most people never really understand, and they never understand how to detach these things. The way you do it is through your beliefs, right? Now, at a surface level, what you can do is stop focusing on perfection and start focusing on excellence. Because inside of perfectionism, there's a piece of you wanting to achieve well, like you wanting to achieve at a high level. And I don't want you to get rid of that, but I want you to let go of the idea that you can be perfect. The reason you generally want to be perfect is so you can prove your value at the highest level, right? But when you start focusing on excellencism and you detach the connection between who you are and what you do, now we can start unwinding this debilitating uh, behavior pattern called perfectionism, right? And when you do that, you have higher self confidence and you give yourself permission to take more action, because if things don't go well, it's not going to affect your self esteem. That's basically the shift that Gigi made. She said her confidence has grown. She said because of that, she increased her yearly retail sales by $3,000. She paid off 8 credit cards. And she said for the first time in her 25-year Mary Kay career, she had 5 active team members. And that's because of the inside out shift that she made. The third thing I want to talk to you about and dissect here is the fear of success. Now, this is the most dangerous fear of them all by far because it's illogical. It doesn't make any conscious success or conscious sense until and unless you understand how the unconscious brain works. And so you have the fear of success when there's a conflict between what you believe success entails and your values. Now, again, you'll see a theme here. This is from your beliefs. So, as an example, if you think that success in Mary Kay equals more hard work, more responsibility, more exposure to people's judgments, more time away from your family, more responsibility to motivate your team members, etc., then you're probably going to create a fear of success, because nobody that I know has ever gotten into Mary Kay to increase any of that stuff. Or let's say that you've got specifically belief around money, that success financially means that you're greedy or you're selfish or that you're not spiritual, that money will change you, that it makes you a bad person, etc. If more financial success equals more of these kinds of negative, yucky feelings, which obviously offend your values, then you want to allow yourself to be successful, because your values will always win. They operate at a deeper level where your beliefs are. So catch the message here. You've got to work on your beliefs. Now, I want to give you two specific circumstances of fear of success that many of you are dealing with right now. And the first one is a fear of success. I'm sorry, a fear of the word yes. Now, we talked about how most people are afraid of this human sound called no, but you know what? A lot of people are actually more afraid of hearing a yes. And the reason is, remember, we're afraid of the painful outcome of people saying either yes or no. So the question to ask yourself is, which actually hurts more? Somebody saying yes and then at some point in time quitting the business, maybe asking to return all of their products, maybe not answering your phone calls anymore, just quitting, joining the witness protection program, and you can never get a hold of them again. Does that hurt more? Or does it hurt more when somebody just says no and they never actually get into your life or get into your business? Most people would say that the yes hurts more. And if the yes hurts more, but the no hurts also, then you really have a lose-lose scenario. Regardless of what people say, there's a negative outcome. Now, again, your experience of those human sounds are going to be determined by your beliefs. And until you detach who you are from what you accomplish, and until you detach your self-value from whether people tell you yes or no, and until you detach your ability as a leader or your value as a human being or your value as anybody, as just a director in Mary Kay, or your value as a team member, until you detach those from other people's choices and decisions, you'll never be able to actually put yourself out there on the line, because your self-esteem will always be at risk, right? So we've got to detach at the belief level who you are from what you do, and then you won't have this fear of a yes. A similar pattern is what I call the fear of the climb, right? If you've had success in Mary Kay before, you've been a red jacket, you've been a director, you've been a team leader, you got into DIQ, fell out, whatever your success is, if you've fallen away from a certain level of success, you have an emotional joy that came from you climbing up the hill. But you've also got emotional pain that came from you falling down the hill. Now, your unconscious mind is more afraid of the pain than it is excited about the joy. And since the pain came from falling down the hill, the unconscious mind says, how can I avoid the pain of falling? Well, the way that you can avoid the pain of falling is to avoid climbing. Because if you never climb back up the hill, you can't fall back down from it. So again, we've got to play at the belief level if you want to detach your emotional joy, your self-esteem from the climb and from the fall. If you want to detach who you are from those experiences, then and only then will you be able to get rid of this fear of the climb. Otherwise, you will always have conscious and even more than that, unconscious resistance, which is more dangerous. You'll always have unconscious resistance to getting back on the bicycle and pedaling again and trying to achieve. Even though on some level, you know you can do it because you did it before, at a deeper level, you don't even want to do it because you don't want to experience that fall. You don't want to experience the embarrassment. You don't want to experience what it's like to tell your team that you're no longer a director, or to explain to somebody why you're no longer driving the pink Cadillac, or to just come to grips with yourself internally. That ego shock of falling down from a hill that you spent so much time and energy climbing. So these are basically the fallouts. These are the ways that your beliefs at a deeper level is going to show up inside your behavior patterns. So you can either try to wrestle with the patterns at the surface, or you can play the game that I'm inviting you to play from an inside out perspective and uproot the weeds. So here's what I want you to get from this presentation: that your beliefs internally are going to determine everything. They're going to determine your identities, your drivers, your values, the definitions you have of pain, pleasure, right, wrong, good, bad, success, failure. They're going to determine the expectations you have of other people. They'll determine your head talk. They'll determine all of the choices that you make. They'll determine all of your actions. Basically, all of your results in life and business. If I can make just a blanket statement, and I very rarely make universal statements like that, but in this case, I believe it. All of your results in life and business will be determined by your belief system. You will never be able to outperform your belief system. So any attempt at behavioral change without belief change from an internal perspective is doomed. At best, it's short-lived. I'm not saying you can't make a little bit of progress. You can, but it can't be sustainable, and it can't fundamentally or foundationally change your life, because fundamental shifts and foundational shifts can only happen at the belief level. They can only happen at the roots. So, this journey that you are on, the journey that you chose as an entrepreneur, the journey that you chose inside of Mary Kay, is rarely easy. Most people want it to be easy. They think sometimes that it's going to be easy, but it ain't easy. And most of you, I would say 99% of you on this call, if you're still around, you know it's not easy, but you're willing to play the game because you also know that it will be worth it. And most people on this planet just don't ever really understand the fulfillment of playing that game that's challenging but worth it. So, what I want you to constantly remind yourself of, you've got to just go back, you've got to go internal and say, what were your little girl dreams? When you were a little child, what did you dream of? I know you didn't dream of coping. I know you didn't dream of dealing with fears. I know you didn't dream of settling for anything. At some point in time, you only dreamt about freedom, about huge, gigantic goals. And inside those dreams is everything you need to succeed if you're willing to tap into them, and if you're willing to really get back to that place. And personal development, truth be told, is more about undevelopment than it is. It's more about chipping away at all the things that we've become. It's not about becoming anybody new. It's about unbecoming all of the false identities that you've put on, that you've created along the way. It's really about getting back to your childlike state where you were ferociously curious about life, when you were willing to take on all challenges, when you didn't care about falling down because you knew that your dreams were big enough for you to get back up. That's what this is about. And that game can only be played and won at the belief level, at the internal level. So that's what I invite you to do, because in the end, when we look back on our lives, it won't matter so much about whether or not you achieved your tangible goals. The question you're going to ask yourself simply is this: did you try hard enough? Did you go for it? Did you give it everything you could? And if you can honestly tell yourself you tried your hardest, then you will have pride around the way you handled this thing called success. If you didn't, all you have left is regret. And that's the biggest fear that I came face to face with when I was 13 years old and I almost died. I realized that at some point in time, if I don't go after every last one of my goals and dreams, I was going to have the what if conversation. What if I would have tried harder? What could I have become? So I don't want you to look back and feel bad about anything you've done in your past, but I want you to look forward from this point and just say, no matter what happens, you're going to get up and you're going to try harder. You're going to keep swinging the bat. You're going to keep taking the shot. You're going to keep pedaling, because that's ultimately what's going to lead you to success. And in life, you basically have two choices. You can commit to a life of convenience and a life of comfort. You can continue working on or trying to work through or deal with or cope with the symptoms, with the surface level challenges, with all of the behaviors. You can try to fight an unconscious, illogical, and irrational problem with some logical and rational and intellectual solution which never works, or you can be more committed to your growth. You can be more committed to changing the game foundationally. You can embrace the challenge and actually learn to love the challenge. And if you're willing to roll up the sleeves, your sleeves, if you're willing to go for it, if you're willing to play the game that you're meant to play by doing the internal work, regardless of how long it takes, regardless of even if it hurts just a little bit, if you're willing to play that game at the belief level, at the seeds level, if you're willing to clear away the conflicts, the fears, the sabotage, the limiting beliefs, so that you can remove the chains, so you can remove the restrictions and live a life of freedom, then you have something to experience that most people don't. You have a level of fulfillment waiting for you. And that's what I want for you. So my invitation to you is to choose wisely which path you're going to go on. And whichever one you choose, commit to it. There's nothing wrong with choosing either of these paths. But you can't choose the top path and expect the results from the bottom one. That's where people get hung up. That's where people create way too much expectation, and people create a lot of pain for themselves when they choose one path but expect the results of the other path. So if you're the kind of person that's willing to choose the growth, that's willing to choose to play at the deeper level, at the seeds level, then I'm going to make an invitation to you. We have a product that can help you. This is one of the very first products I made when I had that shift in 2005, when the life coach walked me outside of a seminar, and in about a 15-minute coaching exercise and a guided visualization, he helped me foundationally change my belief system. And because of that internal shift, everything moved in my life. People saw the shift in me, they asked me about it, and I felt it. It's like a huge weight was lifted from my shoulders. And I know many of you feel that weight because I hear it all the time. You feel like there's more. You feel like you should be achieving more. You feel like there's this anchor, below the surface that you can't see. And that's exhausting. So I'd rather you let go of that anchor and actually release the brakes so that you can run faster rather than continuing to travel uphill, continuing to go against the stream, continuing to fight against the current. So if you're willing to play that and you want our support, my invitation to you is consider investing in this program called Releasing the Brakes. There are 4 CDs in it. The essence of the program is to help you identify what those deeper seeds are for you specifically. See, we can talk about how all of this works in a general sense, but until you put yourself under the microscope, until you get personalized, customized support, you're not going to be able to uproot your unique scenarios. That's what this coaching program is. It's as close to a one-on-one session with myself or one of my coaches as you can get. And the cool thing about it being on audio is you can listen to it over and over and over and over and over again. I have clients that listen to this audio program literally every single day for weeks and weeks at a time, so that it soaks in at an unconscious level. It actually starts to change the subconscious framework, the subconscious head talk. It changes their relationship with themselves. It starts to change the soil, right? It starts to change and uproot the seeds, because they just flood their unconscious mind with this coaching program. So I want you to understand, this isn't just information that you consciously consume. It's a deeper level of deprogramming the problem. It's a deeper level of uprooting the seeds, right? So that's what releasing the brakes is. The investment is small compared to what you can create in your life and business. I mean, I want you to think about, if you didn't have the challenges, if you didn't have the sabotage that we talked about, the fears, if you really could let go of the unconscious patterns that are holding you back, what could you create? What could you create in your personal life? What could you create in your business? How much more money could you be generating on a monthly basis in your Mary Kay business if you weren't afraid of the things that you're currently afraid of? If you didn't have any resistance around talking to people that you don't know, around warm chatting, if you didn't have any resistance around asking people for their name and number, whether they're people that you know, or going up to somebody in the supermarket line, or if you didn't have any resistance towards actually calling the leads that you have, or any resistance toward coaching your hostess or your team members, if you didn't have any resistance in the business anymore, how much more money, let's dollarize this for a second, how much more money could you be generating in the business? How many more people could you be recruiting? How many more starter kits could you be selling? How many more product packages could you be selling if you didn't have the resistance? That's how I want you to think. And over the course of the next 6 months, over the course of the next 12 months, do you think you could generate more than $39 worth of value? And if you can, then this would probably be a smart business decision for you. But you also get a couple bonuses with this. You get a trial, 2-month trial in the Eagles Club, which is an ongoing monthly program where you just basically get shots in the arm of motivation, more conscious and unconscious programming and rewiring. You get a trial to see if that's something you want to stay in. And you also get a private coaching consultation. As I said a little bit ago, you've got to put yourself under the microscope, basically, and see what you specifically and uniquely need to address. So we have a lot of coaches that I have personally trained that are very familiar with the Mary Kay world, with Mary Kay lingo, with the Mary Kay journey. And we want to help you take this information and apply it specifically to you. So as a bonus for investing in yourself with this program, you'll get what's over $129 worth of value in a private coaching consultation. We'll get on the phone with you for about 30 minutes and help you identify how can you specifically apply this information to your life, to your unit, to your area, in your sales, in your neck of the woods, understanding how long you've been in Mary Kay or how short of a time you've been in Mary Kay. We've got to have specific details in order to get the greatest amount of outcome in any coaching interaction. So that's why we offer you a private coaching consultation. This is available for anybody who hasn't recently had a coaching consultation. Generally, we look at anybody who hasn't had a consultation in the last 6 months has this bonus available to them, because we know a lot of things can change over the course of 6 months. So that's the opportunity for you to invest in yourself $39, if you think that you can really shift just one thing that over the course of the next several months, several years in your business is going to provide a shift internally, which is going to provide an external, tangible difference in your Mary Kay business, then invest in the program. And the question that I want you to ask yourself is not the question that most people ask. The question that most people ask is, what could go wrong if I take action? What's the cost of not taking action? What if I lose, specifically in this instance, $39? What if I waste $39? And then the unconscious mind starts ruminating on that question. It starts searching for answers of what can go wrong if you take action. But understand that if you are fundamentally opposed to taking action because that's your default programming, then you'll never be able to achieve your goals, because your goals live beyond your current comfort zone. And your fears are designed to keep you stuck inside your current comfort zone. So if you continue to ask yourself, what's the cost of taking action? You're lighting up your fears, and your fears will continue to keep you stuck. But instead of that question, what if you asked yourself, what's the cost of not taking action? Because ultimately, that's a bigger question. That's what most successful people ask themselves. It's not about what happens if I do take action. It's what happens if I don't take action. How many people will I not help? How many results will I not achieve in my life personally, for my family? See, most successful people are more afraid of the fear of regret than they are afraid of the fear of rejection. That's what I want you to consider. What's worse, never taking action or taking action? That's fundamentally the difference between the way that the successful person thinks and the unsuccessful person thinks. So hopefully you've gotten a lot of value out of these explanations. If this is something you want to take advantage of, the website there is pinkcattycoach.com/RTB, which stands for releasing the brakes. pinkcattycoach.com/RTB. If this is something that you want our support with in order to really fundamentally change the seeds, then jump in. There's an unconditional 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you don't like the program for whatever reason, you don't think that it's what you signed up for, it's not helping you, then just let us know. We'll gladly refund your money. There's actually two options for you. If you go to that page, you can just get the online download immediately. So in the next couple minutes, you can be listening to this. Or if you want the physical products shipped to you because you like to listen to them in your car, you want the online or you want the offline CDs, that's fine too. You just pay a little extra for shipping and handling, and you'll get the download version sent to you as well immediately anyway. So either way, you're going to get an online version of the digital download. If you want the extra copies physically sent to you, then you can do that as well. So again, hopefully this explanation, hopefully this webinar has provided you a lot of value. If you have any questions whatsoever, you can type the questions in right now. Lupe says, do we go to that website to place our order? Yes. Go to that website, pinkcattycoach.com/RTB, which stands for releasing the brakes. Everything will be explained on that website. You can choose whether you want the online download or if you want to pay a little extra shipping and handling for the physical products sent to you as well. So just go to that site and follow the instructions that are there. Cool. Astrid said, we reached 2,000 hearts. I'm not even sure where we reached 2,000 hearts. Where did we reach 2,000 hearts? Is there? This is how much I don't know about maybe this, this webinar system. Is that on the webinar itself? Are you on like the mobile version of the webinar, and oh, cool. I did not even know that. So 2,000 hearts, Astrid says, that we got during this webinar. Thank you very much. I appreciate you letting me know. That was very cool. Kirsten says, it's a very powerful refresher. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kirsten. I appreciate that. So I'm going to wrap up, and I appreciate your attention. Many of you were on this webinar from start to finish, and that is worthy of huge acknowledgement. I want you to thank yourself for being the kind of person that is dedicated and committed to your growth enough that you'll listen to a training like this, that you'll take action, that you'll implement the shifts that need to be made so that you can have this fundamental, internal, foundational change, not just so that you continue to wrestle with any of the surface level problems like most people do. So with that, everyone, I hope you have a fantastic, oh, Karina says, I'm definitely going to get the set. Awesome. Thank you, Karina. I miss you too. It's always awesome seeing you and hearing your energy and connecting with you. So with that, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day whenever you're listening to this. If you have any questions about anything at all, if you have any troubles with placing the order, if you have any questions about the program itself or anything at all, just send us an email. You can send the email to info at pinkcaddiecoach.com, and Caddie is Caddie. You can just return any of the emails that you get when we send out the email invites. You can grab us on social media. There's many ways to get in touch with us and let us know how we can support you in any way that we possibly can. We are here to help you ignite your dreams and achieve the freedom and fulfillment that you're looking for in your world. So I'm Sean Smith, the Pink Caddy Coach in the Mary Kay world. I wish you all the best. We'll talk to you real soon. Take care, everybody. Good night.